Irashaimase. Hello and welcome to Fataris' Kitchen. I'm your host, Chef Fataris. It's time once again for Shoot 'em Up Saturday, and on the menu this week we have Turbo Force, turbocharged arcade action. What kind of taste will it have? Let's get cooking and find out. From developer Video System, Turbo Force released to arcades in 1991. This series is the predecessor to the Sonic Wing or Aero Fighters franchise, and it's definitely a little on the rougher side compared to those titles. It is obscure as it was never released outside of the arcade, so being able to play it in the arcade archive is a really wonderful thing. However, it's a title that does have some elements I personally find frustrating, so I would probably recommend this one at a discount, but not necessarily at full price. That said, let's dive into the game, and you can kind of make your mind up based off of what you see. So, starting the game, initially in its default configuration, you can play the game in 1 or 2 players simultaneous. However, there's an option in the settings where you can activate a third player, which is something rather unique to arcade shoot 'em up. However, but I'm assuming it would introduce some additional slowdown, so but the option is nice that it's there. However, we will be playing the game 2-player, so starting the game, we're taken to the first stage, flying around in our awesome rocket-powered assault cars. So the basic plot here is that we were Air Force pilots racing our sports cars, and we're somehow transported into another dimension. In this dimension, it's being assaulted by an alien force. So using the technology of the era, we converted our cars into these super-powered assault vehicles, and now we're fighting to free the civilization from its enemy foes. And how do we do that? Well, we do that with our rapid-fire gun, which is fairly limited in the scope of what you've got going on. So you have the one laser, and that's it. It can range in power all the way from level 1 to level 9, but there is a frustrating element to that, and that element is that over time of using the particular weapon, it will decay. So even if you're like don't take any damage, you'll go from level 5 to 4, etc., etc. However, you can pick up the cannonball power-ups that will increase your power 2 levels. There's also another power-up which has the possibility of giving you full power, in addition to other effects including a screen-clearing attack. There's a particular ability it has to turn enemies into power-ups so you can power up your weapon, or you can also become momentarily invulnerable. So this first stage boss is relatively straightforward. With that taken care of, we're moved to the second stage, and that's basically what we have here for Turbo Force. So you saw there was the Miracle Thunder. So it's in the shape of a thunderbolt, and when you pick it up, you do get one of those 4 effects. So most of my experience has been that it's usually the screen clearing attack, but then there are other runs where I'll be playing through and I've only gotten the invulnerability or the full power-up. So as you can see, like at this point in the stage, neither of us have gotten a weapon power-up in quite some time, and we're down now to level 2 fire, making this kind of like a mid-boss that we're encountering extremely difficult to take out. And that's my biggest frustration with the game is, through no fault of your own, you're becoming weaker and weaker over time, and it just makes some of the enemies particularly frustrating to fight, even just like throughout the course of the normal stage itself. It's helpful that the enemies, or rather the power-ups you do increase you by 2 levels, but it just over time doesn't feel like it's enough. And that's basically what we have for Turbo Force. So So as far as the minus flavors are concerned, the biggest problem I have with the game itself is that you have that power down problem with your weapon. It would be great if you could just go and keep your power level, and then if you died, it would go and reset to a lower level. That is one thing to go and bring up. There are a couple different versions of the game available. There's the North American version, the old version, and the new version. And the biggest differences there is where it resets your power level to when you die. So if your power level is above a certain point, then you'll be reset to level 4 or 5 depending on which version you're playing. And in the manual there is a nice description of that. Also, it would have been nice if there were some additional options for attacks in the particular game. Just having the one shot seems a bit limiting. And then you also do have a couple scenarios where I feel like the enemies are particularly cheap. This boss and some of its attacks I feel are very, very much that way. As far as the plus flavors are concerned, I find it very interesting that they tried to go and put in a 3-player configuration for this game. I almost wonder if there was a different arcade setup that Video System had that they wanted to use for this as well, and that's the reason for that. But it is just neat to see. And then the biggest thing that I really do find awesome about this title is just the art. So throughout the course of the game, you've been seeing some really awesome mecha design, including the mecha themselves. And some of those mecha enemies, when you defeat them, their wreckage persists on the stage itself in a way that I think is really cool. And even with this stage, we have that awesome enemy there in the background, kind of foreshadowing what you're going to go and see boss fight wise later in this stage. So really, that's the biggest thing that I could recommend for playing this title, is to kind of see the art and just what's going on. But do get ready for a little bit of frustration and just relatively simple overall design. Alright, that'll just about wrap it up for this week's episode of Shoot 'em Up Saturday. As always, I want to thank you so much for joining us. I hope you have a wonderful week, and we look forward to seeing you again next time.